Connected Consumer.
Welcome to the Connected Consumer Podcast. I'm Elizabeth Parks, and thank you so much for joining us today. For this podcast episode, we are rebroadcasting our most recent sessions from Connections live on December 12th, featuring Daniel Holcomb, sharing Parks Associates' most recent research on the smart home market, and then a panel, Smart Home Future Outlook 2025, featuring OliverIQ, Thread Group, Schneider Electric, and GrandCare Systems. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Connections virtual conference. We're excited to talk about the future of smart home. Before we jump in, I'd like to take a moment and thank our sponsors for their generous support of this conference series this year. Today, I'll be presenting Parks Associates consumer research covering market trends in the smart home. And after, we will have an exciting panel discussion about the future outlook for 2025, featuring GrandCare, Schneider Electric, Thread Group, and OliverIQ. Great group here. I'm Daniel Holcomb, the Senior Analyst of Smart Home Research at Parks Associates, and you've probably seen me present other research for Parks Associates or even read some of my work. Today, we're going to talk about how the smart home is now mainstream and what the landscape looks like. We'll also talk about what is hot, what are the sectors and areas of value for the smart home, especially as we approach 2025. And lastly, we'll cover what smart home players must consider and do to lead in the industry in 2025. The smart home is at a moment of maturity where nearly half of U.S. internet households own a core smart home device. Smart home players need to rethink their products and strategies for a mass market buyer. Now, traditionally, the smart home was an extensively integrated experience only available to more affluent households. Now, many consumers experience the smart home through one or more point solutions that solve unique pain points rather than a coordinated, intelligent home experience. And as you can see, the average number of connected devices has doubled for U.S. households since 2015, and the average smart home device ownership has quintupled in that time, in roughly that time. First-time buyers continue to enter the market, many from the early majority and late majority segments. Our framework for our research typically uses Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm to segment smart home consumers, and you can see that we've crossed that chasm to the early majority. Now, as the market expands into the mainstream, there is more urgency than ever to deliver on the integrated, automated, intelligent vision of the smart home. Industry players must adapt and build momentum with an approach that's sustainable with a broader customer set. Of course, this also means earning their trust. And if you want to think through about what is the leading devices in the smart home at this time, video devices are leading in growth in the smart home from an adoption perspective. But also, they are a really good example, perhaps the most successful one, of recurring services opportunities, which is a topic we will discuss in more depth later. For security specifically, 71% of video doorbell owners paid either a monthly fee either for alerts, monitoring, or video storage in 2023, up from 62% the year prior. And they are expanding the market for professionally monitored security. This has also revolutionized the market, causing a move from a systems-based approach towards a more point solution approach for households. Security has been a real bellwether for that. And we see that the smart home is very fragmented as a result of that point solution approach. Consumers themselves are not entirely ready to go all in on the smart home. Entertainment devices with connected capabilities are faring very well, beating out purchase intentions for those devices. But the rest of the smart home is still aspirational. Now, this is a call to the industry. What can we do to better convert purchase intentions to actual device purchases? One challenge that may be contributing to this is that the control of those devices is very fragmented. About 1/5 are using 3 or more platforms to control their smart home devices. In prior Parks Associates research, 90% of smart home device owners say they want a single unified app to control their devices. The Matter standard has rolled around, and consumers will have a choice of control applications that can communicate with all Matter-enabled devices. For example, Alexa could control Google or Nest devices. This reduces some of the interoperability challenges that cause frustration among smart home users, but it does also set up a new competition about which brands will master home control apps or assistants. And that's one thing we're going to be looking at more in the next year. Other platforms are entering the market. So what are some of the possibilities enabled by unified control of smart home? For one, routines and integrations. Parks Associates has asked smart home device owners if their devices were working together in any coordinated fashion to achieve a desired routine or outcome. Additionally, we tested the appeal of 97 unique routines among all internet households, some of which have similar functions, but as a part of different day parts or different household actions. Now, 60% of people said that they don't know or don't have integration with multiple smart home devices, but 40% said yes. And check out some of those important use cases. Security and energy are top of mind. Now, why is this important? Device manufacturers can no longer think of devices as point solutions, even if consumers are still buying that way. The future is a unified smart home, and security and saving energy, of course, are the top drivers of that. So those two broad use cases should always be in the consideration set of future product design and operability. Now, when it comes to interoperability, Matter is a key part of this, and we're also going to see generative AI play a major role as well. There are two complementary forces that could dramatically improve the smart home experience. They're complementary because they are really developing unique ways, and we can expect companies across the market to adopt both. We're starting to see generative AI become major selling points for the smart home. Josh AI and Google Gemini recently released updates that include natural language processing, which is really the next big step in generative AI, and it's going to become table stakes, I think, for the 2025. Now, beyond integration AI, how else can smart home players grow in 2025? Well, based on our research, we have a few ideas. One example is the small to medium-sized business sector. Now, SMBs are a growing market with needs well addressed by the smart device world. Consider the market size. There are 43 million SMBs in the US, and 13 million of those have a physical location. The building type and the number of buildings may influence the demand for connectivity, IoT, and security solutions, but we do find in our research there is a lot of demand for these things. Despite inflation concerns, SMBs are spending on IoT. 83% of SMBs own or use at least one tested IoT safety, security, energy management, or audio-video device. Even with inflation challenges, twice as many SMBs report spending more on all IoT categories than spending less. Now, of course, planned spending on IoT is also really strong. We show that 28% of SMBs plan to increase spending on connected security equipment in the next 12 months, and 24% plan to increase spending on energy management and connected safety solutions. And we're also seeing that across the multifamily housing space and several adjacent industries, emphasis on certain technology solutions like Wi-Fi and networking, smart thermostats, smart locks, and access control systems, as well as AI video cameras and water leak detectors. Now, the thing about Wi-Fi that's important to think about is that it really is the foundation for all these services as well. So that's going to be a key thing to think about in the multifamily space. But also, when you're trying to reach the key decision makers in multifamily space, really think about what they really need, what's going to make their jobs easier. Our research shows that the vast majority are looking for a better and more feature-complete solution. When we've had conversations with industry executives, one thing that we've heard a lot is that they would like things to integrate with their property management platform, such as Yardi, for example. And so really what makes their job easier is having an all-in-one solution or having everything integrate within those platforms rather than having multiple platforms and multiple solutions. And definitely that would be a very good white space opportunity in the coming year, especially as we see interest rates coming down and more building taking place. Now, another thing to think about is how you bring in recurring revenue. when it comes to services in the home, there's more value in serving the pros than simply going direct to consumer. The connection to consumers you enable has the value to other ecosystems players, particularly those in the trades, those closest to the home as well, who may be forward thinking. HVAC providers, senior caregivers, first responders, security and fire professional monitoring centers, internet service providers, plumbers, electricians, and others who provide services. This is another way you can essentially unlock value for others in the ecosystem. Now, one example I wanted to talk about regarding this would be HVAC monitoring. HVAC techs and installers want to add value and recurring revenue beyond one-time installs and occasional repairs. Consumers have shown an interest in our research and monitoring services that can be added to annual maintenance packages, also adding recurring revenue for smart home device manufacturers and for the pros. For consumers, this also means peace of mind, knowing that their issues will be addressed before they become major repairs, and making sure that truck rolls aren't during the most congested time for truck rolls in the industry, around summertime or fall. And of course, we're also watching for 2025 the fact that tech giants are really all in on a smart home, and they're leading the charge on some really foundational pieces of this, including AI and robotics as well. We've heard some rumors that Apple's going to be possibly bringing robotics as well as AI into the system. So really be focusing on the big tech giants and how collaborations with them may really impact your bottom line. So what do you need to do to really keep pace with 2025? These are the things that really you need to think about, just not to be left behind. Interoperability, automation, routines, artificial intelligence, and machine learning are going to be very key foundational elements of pretty much all the software and apps that are coming out, as well as at the edge in devices. And of course, beyond that, you've got individual devices that may have key features. For example, door locks, many of them will have biometrics, ultra wideband, and NFC. We're already seeing some of those rolled out, and we'll see much more of it in the next year or two to come. Robots having the ability to climb stairs or having multiple functions beyond simply just being vacuum robots or floor mopping robots, for example. And you could attach paid services at any point along this line. It could be with the software, it could be with specific hardware, but we'll see more of that rolling out in the future as well. These are the things you have to do to really be on top of the competition in 2025. And also, as you're planning for 2025, really think about the privacy elements. More and more devices means more and more vulnerabilities. We see that 54% of internet households report experiencing a privacy and security issue in 12 months prior to the survey that we fielded. And this is a major increase from 5 years ago and a growing problem. Privacy and security concerns are one of the top 3 barriers to smart home purchases. So this is a major key to overcome, especially as AI gets built in more to devices and generative AI comes to the forefront. And lastly, really want to talk about the macroeconomic and policy outlook. The good news is that with the federal interest rate cuts, we're seeing the possibility that there might be more borrowing for home purchases and making more affordable investments for smart home devices, including for manufacturing for smart home devices, and as well as energy saving devices and infrastructure upgrades. But we do want to temper that and make sure we level set expectations. The potential that we may see tariffs enacted could cause costs of goods to go up, including electronics used in smart home devices or the devices themselves. And of course, there's been talk of potential of reducing at least parts or repealing at least parts of the Inflation Reduction Act, which could lead to a loss of incentives for EV purchases as well as solar, and incentives also for demand side projects. One other thing to keep in mind is that as AI comes more to the forefront in device manufacturing, we'll see more regulation around that. We recently saw the passing of the EU AI Act, which puts regulations on video monitoring and privacy. And Colorado recently passed something called the Colorado Artificial Intelligence Act that addresses the deployment of high-risk AI applications. And expect to see more of that in the coming year or two. So if you want to be ready to advance the smart home and grow in that area beyond 2024, you really need to think about who the consumer is right now and what their needs are, even if they're not entirely vocalizing them. And you also need to think about building the AI and an integration within the entire experience of the smart home. That's going to become table stakes. And then, of course, think about how to make your business sustainable. Attaching services that add value to the consumer that the consumer wants will also help you as a business out.
Daniel, thank you so much for a great presentation, sharing some of our latest research and your insights. I'm Elizabeth Parks. I'm the president and CMO of Parks Associates, and thank you for joining us for our last virtual session for our 28th annual Connections Conference. I want to share a little bit more about some of the research work we've been doing before we go into our panel discussion. And so just a view of our annual deliverables across 2024. You can see we're focused in here on smart home and security, entertainment and consumer electronics, also looking very closely at the entertainment and streaming market, connectivity and mobile, and the rise of fixed and wireless services. We've also taken a really special look this year at the multifamily space and understanding all of the demands there and new deployments with technology. So, Daniel, though, I want to see if you can share maybe a little bit more about the smart home tracker and how we're covering both smart home and security with this service deliverable throughout the year.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Well, we have a smart home and security market tracker that essentially has two components. It has a monthly piece that looks more like a newsletter that has an editorial topical piece, as well as several sections that track the news stories that we think are important, as well as the reasons why we think they're important, essentially supported by our consumer research. We also have a competitor landscape document that we release quarterly that really compares different companies in the smart home market across products and platforms, their software services, as well as the different features, prices, and even includes a market forecast for each of these products. And the thing we covered this last month included the Matter 1.4 update and why that's important. We see that significant number, 32% of device returns in the smart homes because of the challenge of setting up the devices. And so the Matter 1.4 update, with its introduction of access points that operate also as thread border routers rather, is going to be a really important piece of this. Perhaps it could reduce the amount of returns.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing a little bit about that. In looking forward, we also have a similar view for our deliverables across 2025, almost 90 different publications that we release. Can you share a little bit about one area that you're interested in following next year?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the AI. I think that'll be very interesting to watch. Our research shows that 27% of US internet households use AI tech at least weekly for personal use. And I heard that NVIDIA is really key to watch. You know, AI is being built into the chip. So whatever NVIDIA does will be very interesting to see about how it impacts the entire industry.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing AI being infused in all the different industries that we're covering. The key also here is connectivity and the broadband market. And so just want to highlight a little bit more research we have in this area. We keep a very close eye on broadband and internet services since they were introduced into the market back in the 90s. We consider this the foundation of the home, the business environment where all of these different technologies play. And it's not just the major players with millions and millions of subscribers, but also the tier 2 and tier 3 service providers serving small America. This makes up about 34 million households across the United States out of 122 million internet households total. These players serve a really large market when they are considered together. And I love that we're able to capture how these players are shifting and moving as the dynamics with internet change. There's a lot of different regulations also coming to market. As far as the smart home goes, we're going to keep up with the trending data and that eye on the consumer. And so with our benchmarking data from our survey work of 8,000 internet households, this is how we'll continue to provide our trending research to the market. Looking ahead, though, really, we've got a number of themes across the industry in the smart home space that we're going to be focused on. And I'm really excited about this next discussion and panel of speakers talking about the future outlook. But Daniel, I want to give you the last word. Any final comments for our audience? And thank you again for a great presentation.
Yeah, so I think to really think about the smart home for 2025, really keep up with those policy and macroeconomic factors, but also really focus on what's happening at the chip as well and the consumer attitudes. If you aren't listening to consumer, you're not going to be able to understand what their needs are and may make an investment that might not be the best investment if you're not listening to the consumer.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you presenting, and thank you again for joining us. We have a great lineup of speakers that we are going to be talking with today, representing GrandCare, Schneider Electric, Thread Group, and OliverIQ. And again, I'm Elizabeth Parks. I'm going to lead this discussion. And just a reminder, we want to take your questions. If you have comments or questions, please put them in that chat or Q&A box, and we'll do our best to answer them throughout the next 45 minutes of discussion. We're going to start off with 60-second introductions. And so if I could ask our speakers to go ahead and join me on camera. If you would, go ahead and turn your cameras on. Welcome, Scott. I'd love for you to go ahead and start off with a brief introduction of your role and also the position for GrandCare Systems.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm Scott Feldstein. I'm the Director of U.S. Sales at GrandCare Systems. At GrandCare, we make a technology platform that helps people with disabilities, mainly, live more independently than they otherwise could. And I'm talking mainly about people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, autism spectrum, and traumatic brain injuries, people with dementia, and so on. These folks rely on people, disability support professionals, to help them through their day. But with GrandCare, they can automate some of that support and provide some of that support remotely through the GrandCare platform, giving them a more independent lifestyle. And the way that we use a home automation technology is really just mainly to notify remote support people of unusual activity in that person's home. We also GrandCare is a fully featured telehealth platform too, so we use Bluetooth health devices as well, and some smart technology to notify remote support people that maybe there's something in the telehealth data that needs their attention.
Okay, great. Very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think Michael might be having some difficulties with joining, so we'll come back. And if we could keep going to our next speaker, Sujata. Always lovely to have you join us. Thanks for being here. Go ahead and share your role and what you're working on at Thread.
All right, I'm Sujata Nideg. I actually wear multiple hats. So my real job is Director of Marketing at NXP Semiconductors. So I work on product marketing for IoT, especially focusing on the smart home. And within that role, I represent NXP on the board of directors for Thread Group and for the Connectivity Standards Alliance. But I have been involved with Thread Group since its inception, and really Thread was created to deliver a low power mesh, reliable and secure network option for the smart home and smart buildings that provides a solution through being IP based. And I serve as the VP of marketing for Thread Group and working towards defining the product roadmap for Thread Group as well as market education. And the vision at Thread Group is to be the foundation by seamlessly connecting devices in homes and buildings.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have Will West, CEO and founder of OliverIQ. Will, always nice to have you sharing your experience with our audience. So please go ahead and introduce yourself and OliverIQ.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. So yes, I'm the CEO of OliverIQ. We are what we like to refer to as the intelligent home platform. In fact, I think Parks Associates is likely to become an AI research company as much as intelligent device company. I think that's where we're going. If you ask consumers, anyone actually, do you think that in 5 to 10 years you'll just be having conversations with your home? Pretty much everybody would just say yes. And you don't get that intelligent home by simply throwing Chat GPT onto a router and calling it good. You've got to have the automation platform and service platform, things that you and Daniel have already referred to this morning, and then provide it through channels like you're talking about with both large and second and third tier ISPs and other organizations with relationship with consumers that have the ability to provide that kind of one throat to choke service. And our job is to make those ISPs and other companies heroes in the minds of the consumer by enabling them with a platform for the intelligent home.
Yeah, and I love that concept that you all have, especially going through the channel that's already got millions and millions of subscribers, adding value there. So the things we're going to be talking about throughout this discussion really are about strategies, the standards, issues, and new technologies coming into play, which is the big word AI, and Will alluded to some of that, as well as some of the barriers that we're seeing to growth across the B2B side of the market, as well as the demand side coming from consumers. So I'm hoping that Michael from Schneider Electric might be able to jump in and join us, but we're going to keep on going with the conversation. So if he does join in, we'll allow him to introduce himself and then get back going. But let's go ahead and start off. Will, I want to go to you first here and just see if you can share a little bit about what you think has shifted here in the past year. We've been watching this within our own research and this move to a middle market type of customer for smart home solutions. Why do you think that's happening? And, maybe how is OliverIQ really being able to ride this wave perhaps that's coming?
Yeah, well, I love the research that you guys are doing because I think it outlines what is in fact happening. You've talked about the SMB and NDU space, and you've talked about the phenomenon with ISPs. If you just look at those two, that explains a lot of what's happening, particularly when you overlay it on the, what is it, $158 billion IoT market today, right? You've got consumers with an appetite for these things. You've got channels, important channels that have relationship with consumers that are being commoditized, right? The ISPs have tried the triple play, but primarily it's price and bandwidth. And that problem is getting harder as everyone's expanding their network and overlapping each other more. So they need that sticky relationship with the consumer, and the intelligent home provides that. At the same time, you have consumers not only buying devices, but you have the entry level consumers who are going into MDU environments that are actually smart. They're smarter than a lot of the new homes being built. And so builders are realizing, yeah, holy cow, if I'm going to have the new shiny object to sell to these people moving from apartments to homes, it better be a smart environment that I'm selling to them. So there's all these sort of forces, but the overarching dramatic change this year is AI. And we believe consumers, we know, right? We've done automation at scale in over 100 countries. We took the last company public. on the strength of a lot of growth in this space, we understand how consumers react, and they want one throat to choke. So you've got to provide this environment that combines AI, combines the IoT that consumers are buying, and wraps it in service. And that's kind of how the market has become clear in the last year.
Yeah, so all this convergence, the opportunities with integration across different ecosystems, and really the reliability perhaps of the technology, as well as the maturity of some specific areas of technology where that experience is able to really happen in a great way. This is also shifting business models and how consumers are buying products and services within the home, as well as how companies are delivering them. And Sujata, I want to ask you if you can share a little bit more about some of what you're seeing with business model shifts, and perhaps talk on this hardware as a service model that we're seeing emerge across really well beyond just the smart home space. Many industries that we cover looking at hardware as a commodity and attaching services to get the money that way instead.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this, I mean, just taking a step back, I think that companies have a common goal. First and foremost is to drive growth in the industry. And that means driving the adoption of technology by consumers. I know that we all have family members that some are very tech savvy and some not so tech savvy. And so how do we, as an industry, enable and make this something that's accessible and usable by all? And I also think that it's clear to driving value to the consumer is the number one priority, but other key factors in making that transition are really around making things compatible and making it simple, easy to use, easy to install, and then having peace of mind that it's secure and not going to bring up other issues for the consumer. And I think with a lot of these factors involved, the industry is seeing that, and the industry is moving from kind of a walled garden or siloed approach to being more open, and that's where standards come in. And as this transition happens, companies that are providing solutions really have to look at how do they make this transition from where they had a system in place and products, devices deployed, and a way of interacting with the end user and the consumer, to now in a more open environment, how to drive value, their specific value to the end consumer. And what I also see is a lot of the big smart home platform providers that we're used to, like the Apple, Google, Amazon, SmartThings, et cetera, they have their smart home platforms, but they're also enabling product manufacturers and other companies to build on top of those platforms so that they can provide their own solution or platform to the end consumer. So, for example, I think Google has new APIs for their home app, and SmartThings has the SmartThings Pro. So these are things that are being done in the industry to support that movement towards a more open ecosystem and environment. And in the end, that will help companies look at ways to evaluate their business models and how they bring value to the customer and what services. That's, to your point, building on top of the hardware, what kind of experiences can they deliver to the consumer through the services that they provide. And we see so many factors in around energy management, security, aging in place, health and wellness. These types of trends are things that consumers really care about. And if the industry can move to this open platform and ecosystem and having technologies that really are simple to use, that will drive the growth.
Yeah, you made so many really great points there, I think, especially about companies having to make decisions of what kinds of technologies they're going to be using and the why behind those types of standards, as well as the layers of value that are coming, enabled by all sorts of players, including the tech giants. I think we might have Michael on the phone here. So Michael, are you able to hear me and go ahead and introduce yourself? Thank you for joining us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So sorry about that. There is something in the access for a panelist from the Mac is not working, so I apologize for that. I don't know if it's a Mac issue or it's a me issue, but we're talking about technology, so there is always complications. Happy to be here with this great panel and excited to be here. I lead all the residential and energy distribution business, so everything that goes inside homes and buildings in Schneider Electric is within my area of responsibility globally.
Great, and playing such a huge role there. So we are ecstatic to have you join us and also be able to talk a little bit more about the role of energy and the electrification of everything these days. So I'll come back to you here in just a second, Michael. I do want to go over to Scott and see perhaps if you can add on to some of the things that Sujata was sharing about the different dynamics that are coming down as a result of advanced technologies, the demand and innovation, and that role of broadband. You are in a special area with patient healthcare and just people who might need additional tools to be able to live independently. And technology can just play an enormous role here for people's livelihood.
Yeah, it really can. The people that use GrandCare are mostly, as I mentioned, people with disabilities, people who, when they were younger, perhaps they lived in their family home and they had mom and dad to tell them to brush their teeth and to do all the things that sort of add up to a successful day for them, because they can't do that for themselves in many cases. But they rely on people to do that. And I don't claim to speak for everyone, but I'll just go ahead and say that most people don't want someone to tell them what to do all day. And as a result, they want to have some of those things automated for them. And so GrandCare is a platform that does that. One of the challenges that we see in our space is that our customers, they not only use GrandCare with motion sensors and door sensors to maybe alert remote support people that someone might need help if they're up in the middle of the night, for example, or the front door opens at a strange time, so that they can maybe do a video call into that person's home and say, hey, Scott, what are you doing up in the middle of the night? Do you need something? But these customers, these disability support agencies mostly, they rely on other technologies as well. They're using the Ring doorbell. They're using the Crestron video system. They're using a variety of other technologies. And I think what they really want is for everything to be all in one place, right? And so they want to have a unified platform for all the technologies that they need to use to support people in this way. And that's a real challenge for us to decide, who should we invest the development time to integrate with and how? And I'm really interested in what's happening at Thread Group, because that's really promising for a company like ours, that eventually perhaps all of the smart devices, from the toothbrush to the doorbell to all the other things that people might be using in their home, to sort of create this this independent lifestyle for people who otherwise couldn't have it. Wouldn't it be nice if they were all speaking the same language and they could all report into one dashboard for our customer to use in a simplified way? Is that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talking about interoperability in the name of the experience for the end user, and that's not really got to be top of mind, is you do have a customer at the end of the day who's the one who's going to pay for these services or not, and the one finding value. And frankly, across the board in our research, we've found many times that consumers don't see value in some of these products. And so that value proposition really has to be there. And Michael, I know with your enormous role at Schneider Electric, and that we've continued to see energy management as a real driver for automation and smart home solutions in the home, just like safety and security. And then, of course, we've got that healthcare, health and wellness segment as well. And so maybe you can share a little bit more about the role of the electrical panel in the home and some of the things that Schneider has experienced across the past year, or if you'd like to comment on 2025 and what's to come with the panel.
No, my pleasure. I really like the comment that was made just now by people really want to have everything in one place, because this is actually the essential role of the panel, because that's what the panel really does. The panel is the backbone of any home, or actually any building. So in every building, you will have a panel that really distributes the energy that puts life into everything. The panel is responsible for the safety and the energy distribution. So if you really think about it, it's more or less like the main brain of the home and the building. And if you look at Schneider Electric, well, of course, this year we're very proud that we're celebrating more than 100 years of innovation on the circuit breaker side. We continue to elevate the role of the panel and how important it is, because if we want to have a sustainable future, if we want to have energy reliability with all the natural or all the natural events that are happening around us, from climate change and so on, if you want to really drive electrification, because if we electrify more and digitize more, we have a sustainable future and we have better energy utilization and so on and so forth, which is the whole essence of Electricity 4.0. The panel is the main enabler for that to happen, because everything within your home space is electrified and protected by that panel. So at Schneider Electric, we truly believe that we can elevate and continue to innovate in the panel and the role that what the panel plays in the home. So I want you to think about a scenario, which is what we already offer today with our Schneider Home, including our prosumer stack, which is how do you produce energy and you consume it at the same time. You will see that you have a panel that actually can control your loads, that can help you make conscious choices. If you have a battery inverter and a solar panel, when to use the battery, when to use the grid, when you push back to the grid. Is that the right time to charge your car? Is that the right time to heat your home? Is that the right time to cool your home? And make all this arbitration so you're constantly saving money, have energy reliability, and most importantly, becoming sustainable. And that is the role that we have been working on for the past 100 years, and we will continue to innovate on from a panel perspective. And how do we safely distribute energy within the home? Because we ultimately think the main challenge for the entire home automation industry and the electrification of home was ultimately that everything became a gamified gadget all scattered around the house. So we want to take a step back, understanding the challenge that we just mentioned here on the panel, and then really think about, okay, how do you really streamline all this and create an ecosystem where not just for Schneider products, but for the consumer to have a safe and reliable energy distribution, and then ultimately a great user experience where the apps can work together, the gadgets at the end of the day and the appliances can work together in a safe and reliable and a sustainable way.
Yeah, lots of really good points there. And I think as we heard from Jim Nye of Vivint, he said, you know, the home is the gas station of the future, and having all those connection points across the home, enabling demand response programs and the integration, the data, the analysis, the dashboard, everything there is so meaningful really for the future of energy management and consumption. Michael, maybe you can share a little bit more on the view of standards, and then Will, we're going to come over to you next and see if you can share more on, you know, what's really going on across the board. We've got Matter, we've got Z-Wave, we've got the Thread group. These are different standard protocols. Michael, do you have any comments you'd like to share about the standards?
Of course. I mean, I think Thread, Matter, and Zigbee has been there for time. They are all very strong enablers to unify how those, you know, scattered systems that we have today can be more interoperable, at least from a commissioning experience, from an ease of programming, and then ultimately how you bring the experience to the consumer. So we've been working very, very close and with Thread and they have been a great partner for us. We're working with Matter on how do we really enhance this and make it a really truly not just a standard, but a way of communication and a way of interoperability as well. Because the more we drive standardization, which has been the main Achilles heel of home automation, right? That everybody, you have devices on Zigbee, you have devices that are Matter enabled, you have other devices in the ecosystem that are not Matter, Thread is somewhere in between, then you need the Zigbee bridge, but then you have systems that work in isolation, whether they use their own version of Zigbee or Wi-Fi and so on. And I think unifying those experiences, ultimately focusing on what the customer really wants, and then how do you make the life of the customer and the consumer easy, and then you work backwards. And that's what we're trying to do with all those different associations and standards, including the NEC and NEMA, because we need to also continue to think about safety and reliability. Because if you think about the business from a Schneider perspective, everything we do is all around protection and saving property and lives, because you don't want to have a short circuit, you don't want to have a fire hazard, and so on. So how do you bring all this together? We spend a lot of time, I personally spend a lot of time with governing bodies, codes and standards, working with Matter, Thread, and different parts of the industry, even working with some of what would usually you will call our competitors on how do we really make it, how do you unify the experience and make it still safe and reliable and provide an ultimate user-centric experience that we really, I think we are we know what we need to do to break the stigma around electrifying homes and then automating or making an intelligent home, if you may, with the evolution that happening on AI. But we really need to work together more hand in hand to say, okay, there is a set of rules by which we play, and then everybody can integrate in a unified ecosystem. Think about it like the electrical grid. Everybody can plug a car and charge it. Everybody can plug a phone and charge it. You need to have the same sort of manner in the ecosystem ultimately for that to scale.
Great. Yeah, those were great comments. A lot of really good points there about just what's happening in the market. Will, I know you've got some great perspective here and experience regarding these different standards. Tell us where you think this impact and what some of the recent efforts have been helping to really simplify the experience for the consumer and moving the market forward. And you're on mute, sorry. There we go.
There we go. So yeah, standards are great. I mean, I think we all love standards, and everybody seems to have their favorite. And we've got the probably greatest momentum and conversation around Thread and Matter. But let's be clear: Zigbee, Z-Wave, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, NFC, they're not going away. And now you've got Purple, which is a really important standard in the ISP space that's got Matter-like momentum in that arena, and it's important, right? And we've got to support the standards that make things, just as Michael said, as easy and seamless as possible. But standards don't solve the complete problem. The reality is there's a profit motive that won't disappear, that will make sure that, just as an example, an LG TV never looks exactly like a Samsung TV, or a Philips light fixture, Philips Hue device doesn't look exactly like another lighting device. Because people need to make their devices unique. So for provisioning, recognition, onboarding devices, standards can work magic, and we have to embrace them. But there's just a certain amount of heavy lifting that will always be there. You'll always have to have some kind of unifying force to take advantage of all the power that devices can deliver to consumers. and spread across standards and communications protocols.
Okay, so really good comments there also. And I don't want to belabor the point. We know there's standards out there. There's lots of efforts in the name of the experience and the consumer, and these different ecosystems working together. Without standards, there's huge obstacles. And so, of course, we support all the different standards in the market. Let's briefly shift over to AI, and I want to see if we can do a quick lightning round and get you all to give some quick responses on use cases for AI in the areas that you're working within, so that we still have time to talk a little bit more about channels and barriers and catalysts. So going around the table here, if we could see if you all can share quickly an example of how AI is being utilized today within the areas that you're working. And Michael, you're on the phone, but I'm going to go ahead and see if we can start with you first. And so is there anything you can share about the use of AI at Schneider Electric?
There is different use cases as where most companies are trying to find what is the best way to utilize AI and serve our customers. So there is multiple use cases. We're using AI to simulate faster environments and so on for our testing capabilities and our R&D. But I think the most relevant one for our discussion today, and particularly for consumers, we started to launch in Europe as our first trial, Reduce My Bill AI algorithms, where you have the full freedom to select on our Wiser app in Europe, where you can actually select if you want to enroll in saving energy and saving money using an AI algorithm. And in essence, the whole notion of this feature is that our then algorithm, because we have access to all the energy consumptions in the home, if you're using our app, we will understand the behavior. When do you charge your car? How much do you charge it? When do you put your heater or cooler? Where do you put the dryers on? You know, the main loads in your home. And after a certain period of time, we will tell you, okay, we have the recommendation to do X, Y, Z, and save you 50 euro a month, or 60 euro a month, or 100, depending on the size of the home. And if you say yes, then the app, because the app, we have control over the panel, the app on itself, the algorithm will make this arbitrage. And we do this in a very private and secure manner, like we don't know which home is using this or what exactly the data point. So a lot of the computing power stays within the home, because, you know, in Schneider, we really believe that, you know, home is your sanctuary. So we want to keep everything private and secure. With all the threat factors that are happening around us in the world, we try to make it as safe as possible. And so you enroll in the service, and the AI algorithm will particularly understand your energy consumption patterns over a period of time. And then periodically, it will show you the savings. Once you enroll and you give it control, or you start to do it yourself, you will have the optionality. And then you will start to see really in real time how much you're saving day by day, week by week, and month by month. And then ultimately, annually, this year, you've saved 1,000 euro or 700 euros or 600 euros. And you have managed to save X amount of CO2, because in some countries you also have the carbon taxes coming in and so on. So it's been a great success. We've launched it in our innovation summit in Paris, and it has a huge success so far. We have many subscribers, and the more the people use it, the more it gets smarter and the more it provides value to our consumers. So this is just the beginning. Of course, we're thinking about other use cases and how do we deploy it and make it really helpful and beneficial, but also to the power utilities, because ultimately when you have situations where you have a demand response in peak hours or in a natural disaster moments where you don't have enough power to satisfy all the needs, you start to think about, okay, where can I do a demand response, understanding all those patterns of when the cars are charged, when the cars are not charged, where people cool and heat, and you start to really think about it from a greater picture, from a demand response, enrolling virtual power plants, VPPs, and so on. AI will continue to have major role to play as we think about electrifying more, but you know, it's not that we're going to have an abundant source of electrification. So how do we use this power smartly and wisely?
Yeah, really good points, and a great way to show the consumer value. I mean, who doesn't want to save money? And just, you know, getting familiar with what how to save money. A lot of our research shows that consumers want to save energy, they don't really know how and what are the tools to do that. And so this is a great solution. Scott, you want to jump in and share anything from your perspective?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the way that we think about machine learning, AI, and those type of technologies is really, there's a couple of things that really jump to mind. One is that we would like for GrandCare to be able to analyze and understand your activity patterns in your home. That is, with the motion sensors and the door sensors you might have in your home, to be able to detect if something unusual is happening. If somebody gets up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and they return back to bed, maybe that's not unusual. But maybe if they get up and they go to the front door and open it, that might be really unusual. And we'd like to have some intelligence behind that. Right now, we rely on the most intelligent feature of all, which is the people, right? It's the people that have to tell GrandCare, I want you to notify me if this happens, or if that happens, or if this doesn't happen at a certain time of day. But we would like to have some of that simplified for our customers, to have GrandCare make some smart decisions about someone's activity patterns that they've learned over the space of a few weeks or months. But the other challenge that we're really thinking about is GrandCare can talk to you. That is, we do text to speech. This is really handy because a lot of people that use GrandCare are non-readers. So if GrandCare has something to tell them, it's time to take your morning medications, for example. A lot of people need to have GrandCare tell that to them out loud, which is one thing. But naturally, people want to also speak to GrandCare, right? Hey, GrandCare, I want to talk to my mom, or whatever it is. But the challenges there are not just speech to text, because some of the people that we serve, their disabilities are so profound that it affects their speech. And I meet people all the time who I meet, and they're trying to tell me something or ask me something, and I can't understand them because I don't know them. And only the people that are the closest to them have that ability because they've learned it. I'd like to see some AI around that, especially one that doesn't require 1,000 hours of training on that person's speech. Those are the kind of things that we're thinking about here.
Yeah, really very practical, but important and hard in a way, right? Because speech is just in the past few years has really gotten to the point where it's good enough, and that reliability there, because of course, if you're talking about care and speech and communication, that becomes important, that it works. And so I think it's really amazing the advancements that we're going to see across the board in health to home care, especially given this incredible insurance and healthcare market that the Americans navigate. So I think the power of technology is going to be huge. I mean, we're seeing a lot of hospitals in rural and small America shut down, right? That there are no hospitals available. So how are people going to get the help that they need? And I think the government will also be recognizing that, along with ensuring the broadband access, right? Because again, that's the foundation of everything. Sujata, you want to share any use cases, and then we'll get over to Will?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll start with, AI requires a lot of processing and capability, so it's not a simple thing to deploy. So even though we are identifying all these use cases, how do you actually make that a reality? And so from my NXP perspective, we are working on bringing AI enablement to smaller devices, microcontrollers, microprocessors, and all of the tools that are needed to deliver that experience. And then when I think about it from a use case perspective, I mean, a lot of the things Scott said and Michael makes so much sense. And looking at it from using AI to really transform the smart home into an intelligent home and an autonomous home, and change the way we really live in these spaces, or even work in these spaces, by using real-time information and insights to automate tasks, having the environment become familiar with someone's habits and preferences, and anticipate the different needs. And I think this is applicable to what Michael talked about with energy management, but also Scott with aging in place or people with disabilities. But I think it really applies across the board to anyone that's living in a home environment. And I'm thinking even people who live alone. I have a friend who suffered a stroke and she wasn't found immediately because she was home alone. And if she had had a smart, intelligent home, she could have gotten health attention much quicker. Or even safety in the home. I think the number one cause of fires in the kitchen is from unattended stoves and cooktops. And so having that intelligence of saying, okay, there's something on the stove and it's boiling, but there's nobody standing in front of it, and sending some kind of a notification, or even sensing that it's on the verge of causing a fire and just turning it off. And so this type of intelligence can help us in many ways, making our lives more comfortable, but also safe, and allowing us to be able to live securely and safely in homes and manage energy. And what I see is, we've been talking about standards right before this, and Matter provides this common language for devices in the home to speak to each other, and it uses other existing standards on how the devices connect and how they're installed. So it uses multiple standards to address the different use cases. But once you have this interoperability, it provides the foundation for being able to then build on that with AI, because then you have data accessibility across all different types of devices in the home that can deliver various data points and insights to make the AI engine more powerful and deliver more valued experiences.
Sujata, maybe I can ask you a question that came in that's exactly on this topic, but has to do a little bit with the regulatory areas that you think might be impacted most. Do you have any comments on that, particularly around data privacy and security, monopoly issues, bias and discrimination, or copyright and IP? Any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point. I'm not an expert on government regulations, but what I can say is that's another area where standards and building solutions off of standards can help, because there are regulatory efforts around the globe in different regions around security and privacy. When I think back to even just maybe 5-7 years ago, our customers were not, in the smart home industry, were not asking us about security. They were really focused on the connectivity and how to create the end device. And now they are asking about security because their users care about that, and they care about privacy. And governments are seeing this as a need to address, to have some common ways of addressing it so that they can be deployed better. And, the Cyber Resilience Act was just kind of enacted. And so companies have, I think, 3 years to figure out how to become compliant to that. The US has the US Cyber Trust Mark, and then there's also efforts around privacy and what happens to the data that's being collected. And I think building the solutions using standards helps, but I also think that the industry is more engaged with these different regulatory bodies to provide education and awareness around how technologies are used, and how they're deployed and maintained, and what are the key care abouts. And because they may not always be able to see, the regulatory bodies may not always have that insight into getting the different perspectives. So the participation by companies, I know like Schneider and other companies are very engaged, and then the standards bodies are also engaged in these regulatory efforts, and as working as a collective to make sure that what is the problem that we're trying to address, and how do we do that without creating a whole range of other problems that would need to be addressed.
Yeah, it does seem like there are many angles here that have to be considered as standards and technology. Everything is coming out from the industry, and then the regulations around it, perhaps complicating, but also important, right? I mean, it's important to have boundaries and things that are set by the government. Will, do you want to jump in here and share a little bit more about AI use and in the service provider view and the platform side of smart home solutions?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you guys are focused on AI because it's here, it's now, and it's crucial. I don't think we could actually achieve the intelligent home or the automated home lifestyle without it. The reality is we've been doing real automation for a very long time. Devices have been too expensive and the service hasn't been possible. Well, now it is. So now you come home, you expect lights to come on and temperature to adjust and the shades to come up or whatever, and it doesn't happen. And historically, you'd call your CEDIA dealer, and for $500 to $1,000, they would come out and fix a $100 problem, right? And that doesn't scale. Now you come home, something doesn't seem right, or you want to adjust something or change something, you just talk to your home about it. And we're doing that today. So this is not looking to the future. This is real service and support where you have a natural language conversation with your home, and it looks at the actual status of devices and understands and can say, the Philips Hue light appears to be unplugged, or whatever, or it could even give you a heads up that, hey, the batteries on your thermostat are dying, make sure you replace them, right? AI makes it possible for broad-based service providers to provide practical, intelligent home experience today. And that's new. That's game changing.
Great, really great comments there. And with the platforms being attached to the broadband providers, there's also all of these data sets that are getting moved around and being able to be seen by the AI and really learn. And I think that's where the personalization can come in, where it gets really interesting. One of the things that I was talking with Jennifer Kent, our VP of Research, that we haven't spoken a lot about, but we will be talking about in 2025, is this role of the advertiser and the smart home. And if you think of all the data available, anonymized and otherwise, that could be attached to the world of advertising and commerce and how people are buying, which is utilizing their connectivity and going online for a lot of how they make purchases. There are a lot of very, very new dynamics that we think are going to come into play with the world of advertising. When you take in the smart television, the largest screen in the home, and you look at what some companies like Samsung and SmartThings, or LG and the newly acquired company Homey, right? A platform play for LG, similar, I think, in ways to SmartThings and Samsung, you get a whole new world of opportunity. And it really is this idea of the subscription aggregator hub. And Verizon is a really good player to look at how that's unfolding and all that they're able to do, when really their core business is just, providing wireless service. Now it's so much more. So very interesting dynamics going on. We are getting very close to time. I think we might be over time, but I'm going to keep going for till 12:15. So we have about 8 more minutes here. I want to see if we can talk about the channels. We've got security, traditional players. Parks Associates sees them as in a great position to really offer well beyond just security and safety, but with almost all services being around that core. Got the retail environment, broadband players as well, insurance, healthcare types of companies that can distribute devices and services in the home. So if we could try and take 1 minute, these will be our final comments for each of you. And Michael, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on the phone. Thank you again so much for joining us, even though you had a little bit of trouble with the camera. Tell us a little bit about the channels, perspective, and growth coming in 2025. And Sujata, will go to you second.
I think, no, it's first, it's a pleasure to be here, and sorry about this technical issues. I think we are in the right market at the right time. I mean, if I look at Schneider overall, of course, the statement applies even so with all the growth that we see and the acceleration of electrification, decarbonization, and so on. I think we have a lot of tailwind that will push us further. But in particular, with everything that comes to home, listen, with the impact that the interest rates and the inflation has had, there has been a huge built-up demand in the market for homes. And we all know very, very well that we are already underserved in terms of numbers of homes and in relation with the numbers of buyers every year. So the demand is there. With all the crises around energy and the energy prices and so on, I think we really see an incredible opportunity ahead of us to not just on the new build, but the retrofit. If you look at the size and the potential, only in the United States, there is more than 140 million homes already existing today, of which around 50 million homes are due for deep renovations. And the average deep renovations that happen every year is somewhere around 4.7 million homes. So if you just look at the residential single-family home, the opportunity is massive. And we have a very strong, of course, relationship with our channel, whether it's our distribution, the electrical contractors, the electrifiers, and the technicians. And we continue to play our role to, first and foremost, serve our customers in a very good way in providing high-tech solutions that really simplify their lives, that make electrifying their homes and their life better, easier, faster, and safer. And then we are working together with our partners, our electrical contractors, trying to bring more apprentices and more electricians and more electrical contractors into the market. We work with independent contractors and then with contracting bodies like NICA and others. And then last but not least is that how we really help work in lobbying and really giving incentives to electrify more and so on. If you bring it all together, I'm very, very optimistic about the market outlook in 2025, 2026, as we get out of this, high interest rate. As the interest rates continue to decline, the demand will start to come back more and more online. We're already seeing an incredible tailwind in our pipeline, and I'm very optimistic about the market. And listen, the opportunity is there. You call it sustainability, you call it energy independence or energy reliability. It as I like to say, it always leads to Rome. And I think we're perfectly positioned to capture this market opportunity, providing the customer with really one-stop shop. That's how we look at it from a Schneider perspective, using all the incredible technologies that we have developed in the smart panel, but also on the communication and how do we bring this experience in the hand of the consumer using Thread, Matter, Wi-Fi, and so on. So very excited about the opportunity ahead.
Great. Thank you for those comments. Sujata? Oh, I think you're on mute.
I knew that would happen at some point. Sorry about that. But yeah, so a few things I'd like to close on is I think what I've heard throughout the conversation, and great conversation from everybody, really for the smart home to grow and become the intelligent and autonomous home, we have to be able to scale as an industry the services and products that are delivered, and whether they're delivered, what channel they're delivered to has different requirements on education, on how to deploy those devices. So scalability of what we're doing as an industry. And then I talked about it early on about the simplicity and how can consumers take this technology and not just install devices and set it up, but make sure they're getting the value out of it in a very intuitive way. And then how do they maintain and longer term? I think we all probably have had experiences where something stops working in the home within our smart home environment, and it can be very challenging even for those of us that understand the technology to figure out where that's happening. This is something just like my doorbell camera is not connecting to Wi-Fi anymore. It's always offline, and trying to debug and figure out how that's happening. And so I think as an industry, that's where the standards come in to help create this common platform, common language, and focus on how do we scale, how do we deploy, and look at it from the life cycle of the technology and the standard. And so seeing different standards working together to solve the problems and the use cases that exist in real world implementations is how we move forward. And from a channel perspective, I think depending on whether it's going direct to consumer through a professional installer, through retailers, there's some varying requirements on how to enable them to understand the technology, because now it's not about being an expert in one area like security or an expert in lighting. You have to kind of know how everything works together. And so those addressing how that education and awareness happens is something that I think the industry is continuing to evolve and address. And
Yeah,
you'll see it with Thread Group and Matter, also with Thread and Matter, you know, a lot of the work they're doing to provide, you know, Thread 1.4 released in a few months ago and had some network diagnostics capabilities and how to scale the network more sustainably and reliably and more in an easier fashion, and using and leveraging the existing network in the home. So I think that these are the types of efforts that are needed to address all of the channels.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really the promise of the smart home. I think, Will, that was a great segue into you, especially as Sujata's focus in on support and the network. You want to give us your final comments here on what's to come?
Yeah, I think channel is everything. Consumers ultimately need one throat to choke with this stuff. And they've demonstrated a pattern of getting technology from service providers. You know, we all know Apple, we all know Samsung, but most people don't buy their phones directly from those companies. They buy them from Verizon and their service providers. And it gets much more service provider important as you start adding many, many devices in the home that have to talk to each other, and the consumer doesn't know where to start, and they just want help because the air conditioning's not working or whatever, right? And you know, I've talked already about the strategic imperative that ISPs have. Security companies, another fantastic example. Security companies, you know, it's getting increasingly a struggle to sell monthly subscriptions for, you know, $30, $40, $50 a month for a service consumers never use, right? At least they never experience the use of those devices. So our customers include security companies and ISPs and builders and others who need to be important in the connected home, and they need it not only for their own strategic benefit but for the consumer's benefit. Channel is everything in making the broad market important, and I assume that all of the important companies in this industry are working with you guys, because you know, no one's more focused on the intelligent home than you guys are.
Well, thank you for those comments, and we are proudly celebrating our 38th year in business, moving into year 39 next year. Scott, I want to give you the last comment here on the channel side and the adoption of these different devices in the home from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the challenges that we face is that for the most part, GrandCare technology in people's homes is paid through Medicaid, right? So people with disabilities, these disability support agencies are being reimbursed by Medicaid, and that's MCOs or other government offices that are dispensing Medicaid dollars from the federal government and from the state. And the pain that we feel is that every single state is its own special snowflake, and they decide exactly how they're going to pay for things and what they're going to pay for and what they're not going to pay for. And in our experience, there's some states that are what's called technology first, and that is to say, when there's somebody that needs a support to live in the community, that the state has a commitment to look to technology before they look at putting a person in your home. And that's good. But not all states have that view. And so their Medicaid waivers, they either allow for this type of technology and this type of remote service delivery, or they don't. But even the ones who don't are thinking about it. So we're sort of waiting for every state to sort of wise up and realize that you may not know, but everyone who provides any type of in-home care, whether that's helping your mom, in and out of the shower or whatever it is, um, they're all facing some very severe workforce shortage. Okay, there's no people to do these jobs anymore, and the pandemic accelerated that ongoing problem. And so, being able to use technology to mitigate those staffing shortages is huge. So usually when I tell people what GrandCare costs, they say, "Oh, well, that's a lot cheaper than putting somebody in your home." So no problem. But the state governments are sometimes slow to respond to that need. Um, the other thing that comes to mind in this conversation too is that, of course, we source a lot of our technology from China and other places overseas. That's just a fact of life with technology like ours. So we're real concerned about what may or may not happen in the coming years.
Yeah, really good comments. And, I love this group. You all have done a really great job sharing different perspectives, around energy, around broadband and connectivity, around healthcare, AI, different use cases, the standards. This has been really a great conversation. And I want to sincerely thank you for your time. We appreciate your great support and the valuable time to spend and help educate our audience, which is part of Parks Associates' mission. And so thank you again for being here. And I hope I get to run into all of you at CES. And so hope to see you in a few weeks in Vegas.